Welcome to the Creative Tools Podcast. My name is Ashay, and I'm immensely passionate about using technology for creativity. On this podcast, I talk to various creators about what tools and technology they use to be creative. My guest today is Mukund Marathe. Mukund is one of the founding members of California Arts Association, also called CALA, that was founded in 2002 to produce, present, and preserve the rich cultural heritage of performing arts from India. Mukund has directed, acted in, and translated more than 50 plays in Marathi, Hindi, and English over the years for various community theatre groups such as Kala and Natak. Doing theatre is the most creatively satisfying activity that helps to keep a balance between otherwise busy career and family obligations, says Mukund. An accountant by profession, Mukund has been extremely passionate about intelligent theatre. Hello, Mukund. How are you?
Good. How are you, Ashay?
Thanks a lot for visiting my podcast.
Sure.
So let's dive right in. My first question is, what do you create?
So I'm associated with California Arts Association, and I create plays for both stage as well as online. And in online, they are either live or they are pre-recorded and edited.
So when you say create, do you direct them?
I do direct them. I sometimes also do translations from English plays into either Hindi or in Marathi.
Okay. All right.
And I also act in them.
Okay. All right. So I think we are talking, I'm talking to you in the capacity of a theater director today. So in directing process, I'm a filmmaker. So in my filmmaking process, there are usually three steps: pre-production, production, and post-production. So just like that in creation, I want to kind of gear the discussion for these three phases. So for the first phase of pre-creation, before you start creating or before you start directing, do you uh, do you get inspired by something? Do you record your inspirations, and how do you retrieve those inspirations when you create?
So mostly the inspiration comes from reading about a play. Either it is being produced and performed on stage, and because of the technology now, you get a chance to read about it. So if you find something interesting, or if you have watched a play in English, and you find it very interesting and very generic in the sense that it is not constrained to a certain segment of the audience, that it is a universal theme, then the next step would be to obtain the script of that. And there are some clearing houses in the US, like Dramatist Inc. or Broadway Inc. They are keeping all the scripts on their website that you can actually download and read. And then they also are the clearinghouse for obtaining permission from the playwright and giving the honorarium and everything. So that is, I would say, is the starting process, that you have read about something or you watched something that you find interesting enough that that you want to create it yourself for your audience.
So has it ever happened with you that you read something and then you want to create a play from it, direct it, but then the actual creation is years later? So it's not you read something like many years ago, and then now you think that okay, now it's time to take on that challenge. Has it ever happened like that, or you always read and then create right away?
No, it happens all the time. It's
Okay.
like a number of plays that I have watched while I was in India, and it had stuck in my head that okay, this is something that's it's a good theme. Uh, there was one play called Sahul, which was loosely based on Indecent Proposal, and it had stuck in my head after having watched in 1998. But it took until sometime in 2010s that I created it for stage. So it
So
does happen that that it takes many years.
so how did you retrieve that inspiration? Like, how did you, was it just based on your memory that you thought in 2010? How did it come to you years later that you
I
want to?
think it is the trigger for that was finding a couple that was very good in acting. So once I met them and found out that they would be ideal, that was the trigger to bring it back and
Hmm.
decide to actually present it.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, do you do you keep notes at all? Like when you, let's say, this Tahul play that you were talking about, you when you watched it back in India, uh, had you made notes about it somewhere physically, or it was just in your head?
It was just in the memory.
Okay, okay. But in general, do you make notes of when you see something that's inspiring?
If I see something or if I read about it, I do download and keep it. Like there was a story in San Jose Mercury News that I haven't yet converted into a play, but I have the clipping of that, and I read it from time to time just to remind me that hey, this is something that was. That you had in mind of producing. It was a very interesting story of a woman that met her son that was given away because he was born out of wedlock,
Hmm.
and he was given away at that time, and uh, her daughters eventually made sure that the mom and her first son they are reunited, and he was working in a casino in Las Vegas, so they took a trip with the mom, and it just the visual of that meeting of the son after so many years that was stuck in my head, so I kept the press clipping, so I will work on it at some point.
So, but then, has it ever happened with you that you encounter, let's say, a creative block, and you can't find your own inspiration that you have recorded many years ago?
It's very likely. I mean, I have a story that I want to convert into. I mean, there are a couple of stories that I want to convert into a film, and I start writing, and then I get to a point, and it happens that okay, well, having not actually lived in that situation, it's hard to come up with further ideas to take the story forward. I have
Hmm.
just a general outline that I want um, to make a film out of, but that hasn't. I mean, I've written pages after pages, and it hasn't gone anywhere. So it does happen.
But then, when you write this, do you write by hand, like it's a handwritten note, or is it on the computer?
It when I wrote it, it was by hand. I mean, I wasn't the Marathi text wasn't so common
Hmm.
in the computer, so you can imagine how many years ago I have written it, and
Hmm.
still waiting to actually produce it.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Um, so I kind of understood about how do you record your inspiration. I want to touch a little bit about retrieving it again. So one example that you gave was you found a couple who could act, and that was your trigger point to retrieve the inspiration that you had. You had recorded in your memory many years ago, but then would that always be the case where you would find someone who would fit the role that you are thinking about, and then that would be a trigger for you to retrieve the inspiration, or there would be some other instances or other stories?
No, not always just finding the right people to do it. Is sometimes the impetus is a major event that is happening. Like we have a convention of Brihan Maharashtra Mandal that happens
Hmm.
every other year, and that's a major event where 4 to 5 thousand people from all over North America gather. So something like that. That when convention was happening in Los Angeles, we decided that we were going to produce another play that I had seen many years ago called Teen Paishacha Tamasha, and that required like 40, 50 people on stage. It was perfect for a convention type
Hmm.
setting where there are 4,000 people in the audience, and
Hmm.
that was the reason why I decided to produce it.
And what's your organization process for recording this inspiration? Is it, I mean, the handwritten notes are one thing, but then for the clip that you just mentioned about San Jose Mercury news, is it downloaded on your machine and kept it there, or you tag it? How do you organize?
In both ways. I mean, if it is something that is now available for download, then I will download it. This particular press clipping, it was San Jose Mercury. I didn't have the online subscription for San
Oh,
Jose
okay.
Mercury News, so it's a press clipping that
Okay,
I
okay.
have kept, and it is turning yellow now. So I know that it has been many many years ago, and that needs to be worked on.
Okay, okay. All right. So now let's turn towards actually creating the play. So, so I will tell you what I feel. I mean, what I have experienced in creations, and tell me if you resonate with that, or is if there is a completely different process. That's perfectly okay too as well. So in the actual creation, there are two major steps that happen. One is building a prototype of what you want to create, and that prototype could be in any form. Like for films, it would be a storyboard. Um, for plays, it could be a structure of the play on paper, something like that. I mean, that's one thing. And then while building the prototype, the creation actually gets formed in your head first than in physically in front of you. So then the next step is usually uncovering what you have in front of you to reach the creation that you have in your head. Like for example, when I make films, there is like this mess of audio and video clips, and I know the film is there, I'm seeing in my head. All I need to do is uncover it by making a choice between, okay, should I use this to reach my final destination. um, do you also feel a similar experience, or is there any other experience that
So
uh,
it is very similar. Only thing is that you don't have anything recorded. It
right?
happens over time. So for a play, the my starting point is I have a sketch of the stage setup in my mind. That
Okay.
there are going to be two doors, one on stage right, one at the back. There is going to be a staircase for going up. There is going to be a sofa here and a chair here. So that gets built into my head initially, that how is the stage setup going to be.
Mm,
And then I would start I would of course have auditions and select actors and start rehearsals. So the rehearsals is similar to a filmmaker having bunch of footage
mm,
in front
mm,
of him, and he knows that as at the end of the rehearsal I know that okay, the play is coming together. But every rehearsal I give a freedom to the actor to start doing it differently and to get under the skin of their character.
mm,
And when I see what I have in mind in a particular rehearsal, I tell them, okay, now is the this is what I want, and
mm.
freeze to that, so that in the subsequent rehearsals they will continue. Until then, they have the freedom of trying different things,
Huh.
of portraying their role. And then as you get closer to the performance, obviously we have what we call as run throughs, which may be similar to editing of
Mm.
a film. That the run throughs, there is then no change. I mean, you're just doing performing, performing,
Right.
performing, and keeping only what you need in the final presentation. And
Mm.
that's how the process works. Is I start with a sketch, I do the rehearsals, and then through that I get everyone come up to the point what I have in mind for each of the characters.
So this is really good because I think when you do the sketch of the stage in front of you, that's kind of like making a decision on what you think the prototype of your play would be. And then when you are doing rehearsals, you allow actors to give you a choice on what you uh, for you to reach your own creation in your head. And then once they offer you these choices, then you select one. So it's now not a decision, it's a choice that you present. You create an opportunity to give you for the actors to give you a choice, that choose. So it's a decision based building a prototype and choice based shaping a prototype. And
Yes.
those are the two things. Okay, great.
Yeah, and I explain to them what I have in mind, but I can't tell them,
Right,
okay, this is the way I want. I want them to come with their own thoughts because I may not have thought everything.
right,
So that
right,
is the
right.
difference, probably, that the filmmaker has thought everything in his head. And
So
and of course, the prototype may change. I mean, I may have a
right,
sketch that I have got, and I say, hey, this is not working in terms of the blocking of the play.
yeah,
This is constantly getting all the action is happening on one side of the stage or the other
yeah,
side of
yeah,
the
yeah.
stage, and then you will change. But at least I need to have a starting point as to what I have in mind.
Okay. So I think I mean one of the things of one of the differences I feel in building prototype for theater and film is, for theater you build a prototype of space because the
Hmm.
space is constant.
Hmm.
For film you build a prototype of time because you go through different times
Yes.
in the chronological order of scenes. And then and the space is variable because you could
Yes.
shoot in like different
Anywhere.
spaces.
Yeah.
But the time prototype is important, time structure is important, whereas in theater I think the space structure is very prominent and very important to look at. So with the sketch that you just mentioned, um, do you draw it by hand or do you use any tools to do that?
Mostly by hand. Sometimes I have used shapes that are in Microsoft Word or other places. Like if there is a table, then I will just take a shape from there and drop it into the sketch, but mostly by hand.
Do you kind of like build a 3D structure on a desktop or something? I mean, not I'm not talking digital. I'm talking like um, what we call nepathya, right? So you do you build like a scale replica of the stage somehow? I mean, have you done that before?
Yes, I have done that, especially when we are using different heights of risers. Then
Huh,
I take a index card and cut it and
right.
make it like a different height of a riser and say, okay, you step down from here to here and to here, and then I can play around with those physical blocks of index cards and move them around to see how the structure will appear on stage. So I've
So
done
how important is this pre-visualization to you?
I
Is it really
I
important?
think it is very important. I mean, I couldn't start with a blank stage and nobody has any idea as to where they are entering from, where they are exiting, and nothing. So I
Ah,
need to have that idea. And sometimes, I mean, people uh, when I'm doing auditions, I try to set up the stage as
right,
I have in mind, and I say,
right.
okay, you're performing in that space, and people find it very interesting that I had already idea of the set in mind, because if I want somebody talking on the phone, then I need to have a a desk or something that has a phone on it so that they can audition with a real prop and I can
Hmm,
see them doing that.
hmm. Interesting, very interesting. Um, and then so now let's talk about post creation. So now the play is directed, everyone knows what they have to do. How do you release this creation into the world? How do you distribute it and how do you market it?
Yeah, so I would like to go back to the creation phase,
Okay.
because for the on stage is what we talked about. The online
Oh,
is
okay, sure.
what was made possible because of COVID, fortunately or unfortunately, that we had to adapt and
Hmm.
change our presentations to online. So for the online creations, there were a number of tools that I had to use to make it interesting for people watching from home. So there were two types of online presentation. One was pre-recorded and edited and just the final product release, and one was live streamed. So live streamed was a very interesting thing that I learned a lot about doing a live stream. And OBS is one software which is like
Hmm.
a godsend, that it has like a TV studio setup. You can give input from two cameras,
Hmm.
and so we would set up two cameras at two different angles, because the way that I have structured the play in terms of actions, I want sometimes the cameras to be going closer, sometimes taking a wide shot and giving that feed. And ob on since I have directed the play, I exactly know which which camera shot I want to show
Hmm.
to the viewer. So I will be sitting on the OBS as the live editor,
Editor.
and
Hmm.
I will choose it between the program and the preview two cameras. So OBS was one great thing that made it possible for doing. And we did number of plays which were live streamed, and I used OBS for that purpose. And for the pre-recorded ones, Adobe has two excellent softwares. The Premiere Elements and the Photoshop Elements are the ones that I use. And it is just amazing that for such a nominal cost, so much technology is made available by Adobe, because I may not have even used 5%
Hmm.
of the technology that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
in Premiere Elements and Photoshop Elements. But even with that, I am able to create something that is gripping, and people find it professionally done. So those two are absolute big help in terms of creating our editing the pre-recorded stuff. And there is so much light correction, and I mean so many things that are available in that.
Yeah, yeah.
Just normal editing is one thing, but I do have two or three cameras capturing the feed, and then I will edit it based on what I want to show.
So let's go a little bit to the Premiere Elements thing. So let's say you are editing your pre-recorded event or the play
Mhm.
in Premiere. So did you also experiment with okay, if I have this angle, this angle, this angle, it would tell story in this fashion. But now if I just change the order, it might do something else. So did you also experiment like that, or you already had in your head that okay, I have to show this angle after this angle after this angle?
So most of that was done during filming itself, all the
Okay,
experimentation. So
okay,
once of course, the filming is done, then you are limited by the choice of the footage that you
right.
have got. So most of my thinking or changing was done during filming. I mean, we did one play that was recorded actually in two different, because COVID it was
Hmm,
possible. So we recorded a portion, one character here in the Bay Area and one character in Austin, with a different cinematographer. And for that recording in Austin, I wasn't there.
hmm,
So I had to give them a short division of
hmm,
everything that I want. I want her to turn and look
hmm,
at the camera. I want her to walk into the frame. And all of that was written down in a long
hmm.
list of things. And obviously, I mean, not all of that got translated even
Yeah,
after putting it down on a piece of paper. So that's one thing I'm always amazed by, that how much of meeting of minds needs to happen
yeah.
between the director and the cinematographer,
Cinematographer, yeah,
that many times the directors feel that they want to do the cinematography themselves, because it cannot be translated. But
yeah.
that is what was done, is that all the things that I wanted were written down,
Hmm.
And then if cinematographer gave me something different, it's just like the stage thing. If the actor gives me something
Yeah.
different, I will accept it. It's the same way we did it with the all the footage that came from Austin. I had no control over the actual filming of it.
Hmm. Okay, great. Um, can we talk about the post creation now? I mean, release when you create your creations, how do you release them? How do you distribute them? And how do you market them?
So for the stage creation, of course, you arrange a show at a local theater, and then you sell tickets and people come and watch it. We try to do multiple shows so that the actors get a chance
Hmm.
to try something different depending on the audience response and things. Not so much playing to the gallery, but if they want to try something different, and it's also artistically satisfying if you are doing it multiple times. So that's
Hmm.
what we do for on stage, and of course we capture that with again two video cameras and then release it later on. For the ones that are streamed online or done pre-recorded and edited and released, YouTube is the great mechanism for releasing anything. So yeah, we have a channel on YouTube that we use for uploading all our plays and our streaming options. And of course, along with YouTube, then there is Facebook Live that we have used, and Vimeo is something that we have used for releasing the
Hmm.
final product.
Hmm. Hmm. And how do you market it? Like, how do you let people know that you have this?
So we have Facebook groups. So we have our own page and a Facebook group that is subscribed by about 2,000 people. So that is the way. And we have email marketing, which is also has about 3,000 email addresses. So that's where we announce it that the online presentation is now happening on such and such date, or it has been released on our YouTube channel, and here is the link so people can click on that and watch it.
And do you create possibly a structure for your marketing communication?
Structure in the sense there are different uh, avenues like email marketing or social marketing.
Yeah.
Now we have an Instagram page
Right.
for Kala, so that is another avenue but there is a sort of a structure as to in the first week we will announce just the play.
Hmm.
In the next week then we will have a director's note. In
Hmm.
the week after that we would have had a photo shoot, so the photos will be released and videos will be released. So there is a structure as to what goes out on a week by week basis. Typically it's a 1 month process for marketing.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, what is the biggest challenge you face in your creation process?
Time.
Okay.
Time is the biggest challenge, that you just run out of time. For OBS, it's a two camera setup, and I have worked in a KMVT studio in Mountain View, which is a community access television studio. So we did a TV show for 3 years for Kala, one show per month, and they had a three camera setup. So that is something that I miss in OBS, and I don't know if there is any other software that can give me the three cameras and I can choose which one. So that's one limitation. That's a challenge there. Lighting is a very big challenge because I have seen that how much lighting can make an impact in a film. That hours and hours are spent
Hmm.
on getting the right kind of a lighting
Hmm.
setup when we are doing online streaming of our plays. Lighting is a big challenge. I haven't learned enough to get to the right kind of a setup. There are always shadows in the back and all kinds of compromises that we make. So that's one big challenge.
So, let's talk about this lighting aspect. So, what then have you done any, like, again, pre-visualizations or some kind of tricks to uh, quickly understand the impact of lighting on your storytelling or directing process?
So it has. I mean, as the play is developing, I know certain things that need to happen for different scenes.
mm,
And on stage, it is very probably very structured, because then you can have a spotlight on
mm,
just a pair sitting somewhere, or just an individual sitting, or you can have a change in the lighting from warm to cool,
mm,
and that gives a certain effect on the audience.
mm,
Also denotes what time of the day that
mm,
you're
mm.
having. You have a cyclorama that you can use for different showing the different times of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
When
Mm,
I'm doing live streaming, I mean, I there was a play that I wanted to show, that the play starts in the evening, and it was just a 20-minute play, but over the 20 minutes it starts getting darker outside, and there was
mm,
a line in there that the female actor says, "Oh, it is getting dark. I should leave," and it was very hard to get that change in a live stream. So we tried different things, because we have LED lights with California Arts Association. So we tried changing the color, but it was, I mean, people said that, yeah, it looked good, but it wasn't like a real Twilight kind of thing. It will take, again, time is the biggest challenge, that it will take time to get that right. Or there may be information available on that, like what kind of a setting you need in the LED lights in order to get this kind of lighting. I know that for stage lights, there is a color palette that you
mm,
can exactly select the color, and there is a number that you enter the number and you will get that light. I
mm,
haven't yet figured out, or our lighting technician hasn't figured out all of the different buttons that you can press
mm,
in order to get a particular effect. So there is a compromise there.
mm. And has how has digital technology impacted your creation process?
So definitely nothing of this was possible without the digital technology. I mean, even for plays that we do on stage, there is a element of background music. It's
Mm,
not as much as in films, but there are certain scenes that need to be accentuated
mm,
with a background music. So there is a ton of background music that is available on Dawn Music or
mm,
Sound Dogs or YouTube or any many other channels that you can download. So we use Sony Soundforge to download it, and then there is a very good software called ShowQ System that one of the traveling touring company from India, they introduced us to the show queue system, where you can put all your sound cues in an order, and sometimes you need one cue like a rainfall, and suddenly a lightning comes at a particular point. The rain shouldn't stop, the lightning should come on top of that. That is possible in sound cue system, and so we immediately adopted that as our standard. And I'm glad to say that the last visit to Kabarli Theatre in Palo Alto, they said that if you have your project in SoundQ, in ShowQ system, we can just import it. So even here, it has been adopted now by theaters. And every play that I go to in India, I see the same kind of visual on the screen of a ShowQ system.
So
So
I
for
didn't understand when you said sound cues means what? Like you what do you do exactly in show cue system?
So there is certain scenes to accentuate them. You need soft music in the
Right.
background. So these are music cues, or there is a gunshot happening at a particular point, or there is a major kind of a impact that you need with a boom. So though all those sound effects, or a phone rings, so you need a sound effect for that, or a doorbell rings in the
So
play.
is it like you create a playlist of
Yes.
these sound
Yeah.
effects and then but then there has to be someone clicking on it to
Yes.
uh, play
Yeah.
the sound, correct?
Yeah, so what I do is I create what I need and download all of them and put them in the show queue system. And then we have some people that are trained on
Hmm.
using the show queue system, or sometimes they gather all of the sound cues that are needed, and they are put in a order. So sometimes for a play we have like 96 sound cues that are
Hmm.
put one below the other, and all they are doing is just clicking next, 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 and it will play, and I will mark on the script that this is where I want the
Oh,
sound to
okay.
come.
So the person who is handling or managing the sound cues would have the script in one hand and this screen in another, and
Yes.
then he's looking at the script, and then when the next cue comes, you can just hit next,
It's
and then the
yeah,
cue will play.
exactly, and the cue will play, and then you can release a cue on top of the cue that is playing, just like the rainfall
Uh-huh.
and the
Okay, okay.
lightning effect. So show cue system is another great thing that we
So
have.
before this existed, what did you have to do?
Oh my God. It was so hard that we had to get a playlist created in Windows Media Player.
Hmm.
And if you're not careful about stopping a particular queue, then the next queue will start playing. And it was a nightmare that the person operating it had to be very, very careful about not it going into the next queue, that it had to be
Also,
stopped.
it would automatically play the next
It
one.
will
That's what you were saying.
automatically play the next track. It is
Okay,
just
okay.
like playing a CD
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
you get it into a Windows Media Player. We had
Hmm.
not figured out how to make them each one discrete so it will not go to the next one.
Hmm.
And it was very hard. And even prior to Windows Media Player, it was on a tape recorder that somebody
Yes.
could actually play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
the
remember.
digital technology from that, from the sound point of view, these are the things that have helped. From the video and online streaming, all the ones that I talked about, like
Yeah.
OTS and Adobe, nothing, none of these things would have been possible without the digital technology.
Right. Right. Um. And then in your creation process in directing plays, like, have you uh introduced any process improvements, innovations, automations for the activities that you do?
So not so much for automation. Improvements are ongoing. So when I'm creating, I mean, I always come across issues that, okay, how do I do this? And one good thing about YouTube tutorials is that there is so much
Hmm.
information that is available. So again, it comes back to the biggest challenge is time. So if I can quickly find a tutorial that tells me how to do a particular thing in a video,
Hmm.
then I will quickly do that, or how to do certain things in Photoshop.
Hmm.
I can do that. So YouTube tutorials are great help for making process improvements, but not so much on automation. I haven't figured out how
Hmm.
to automate some of the things.
Hmm. And what is the vision for your creations? And in general, I think it would help me to understand, like, what would future theater directing would look like.
So, not so much for future on-stage theater directing, because it has been going on for hundreds of years
Hmm.
and it will continue to grow. But for California Arts Association, my vision is that we want to get into making something that is a consistent offering, like a web series,
Hmm.
where it has number of episodes, and whatever we have learned in doing this rudimentary task of recording and editing, or doing live streaming, to get into a little more professional way and have a consistent offering where people know that every month or
Hmm.
every
Hmm.
week there is going to be a new episode of that
Hmm.
coming. So that's my vision, that the technology is available, the talent is available. It's the just the amount of will and commitment for us to get into that space, because there is so much happening in that space that is becoming very popular,
Hmm.
and we have what it takes. It's just the question of learning all the tricks of trade and then making a time commitment for making it happen.
Hmm. And I asked this question to some of my other guests as well. While making your creation, do you feel lonely sometimes? Like you are alone with your content, and I wish there was someone to help me. I mean, not necessarily a person, but like some kind of companionship. Would you appreciate that?
I think for theater it is very different because you are constantly working with other people.
Hmm.
So all the creativity and improvements come through rehearsals. So that doesn't make me feel lonely. When I feel lonely is after the first reading of the play, because then I feel that okay, should I be doing this? Because no actor has any idea about what
Yeah,
the
yeah.
role is, or they haven't read the script, even if I have sent them beforehand. So that is when I feel very, very lonely and feel that I need some help after the first reading. But as the rehearsals progress, I think most of that enjoyment is through coming together with the
Hmm.
actors and doing through the process. I don't enjoy the show as much. The final product, it's just the process that I
Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah. Great. Thanks a lot, Mukund, for your thoughts, and thanks a lot for visiting my podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you are a creator, I would love to talk with you. Please connect with me through my website or social media. See you in the next episode.